GM to YouTube. Yes, we're talking about sailing. I want to say right off the bat before we get into anything that I'm a bit of a Debbie Downer sometimes, but I will say that I don't think sailing has no merit whatsoever and no promise. I think there's a lot of merit to sailing, and I think there's a lot they could do with it that could make it really good. Hence making video on it. Give them some ideas, maybe make the skill better. If you didn't see it, the alpha came out for sailing. They had the rough, training. A lot of things were missing out of it, like there was no combat whatsoever. A couple methods were missing. Basically, we've got the rough idea, at least, how sailing is going to work. So I wanted to show you, if you haven't seen it, what the training methods are, what it looks like, and talk about it from there. So the first training method they had is port tasks. It's two things. It's do cargo missions, like sail from point A to point B and give them cargo, or kill X amount of sailing creature, like this many sharks, this many manta rays, etc. Basic sailing slayer, and then cargo missions. This is kind of like the bread and butter, typical training method. Not super high intensity, but not like AFK necessarily either. This is like your motherlode mine, bread and butter training method is port tasks, okay? That was the idea. We then also have shipwreck salvaging, which is, you go up to a salvage spot, you click your hook, and you pull up salvage, which can be turned in for equivalent bars or something, equivalent loot. It's mining or woodcutting. It's go up to spot, click it, and sit there and pull up some resources and leave. That's it, really. That's all salvaging is. But you know what? A good old Hebox found 2-tick salvaging. So you'll be able to 2-tick this, possibly for the best XP rates for the skill. This may be the meta, overall. We'll see. But basically, you can step away, step back there with a 3-tick action. It gives you 2 rolls at it, so it's 2-tick overall. Okay, kind of neat. But yeah, this is just really similar to woodcutting or mining. Basically, that's the method. They had sea charting, which is, I think, just one-time XP. This is not a training method. This is a one-time unlock XP when you get to a newer area. So it's not really... They say it's aimed at completionists and cloggers. So this is not really a training method, but it's, some extra XP you can go pick up. And then they had what is theoretically the best XP, Barracuda Trials, which is Sepulchre in the Ocean. You sail around collecting supplies, and you try to do it quickly and get back without letting your ship get too damaged. And it looks like this. It looks exactly like this. Frankly, overall, I feel that Barracuda Trials was the thing I was most excited for. It looks just really jank. With the boat mechanics, the turning and the... I could see plugins, putting indicators on where exactly you have to touch with your boat for all of these, on the whirlpools, on the cargo, maybe even showing you a route you should take, for efficiency would help a lot. Right now, it just looks kind of janky, I'm gonna be honest. And this could get improved, I think, a bit before release, but I don't see this method being, Sepulchre tier, amazing, where it's just, really, really engaging, interesting, fun. It just looks kind of janky, I'm gonna be honest. And that's it for our methods. That was everything they showed to us. They have said there are a couple methods that aren't shown in the alpha. They said a couple more methods would come down the line in, a Forestry Part 2 kind of way, where they mentioned something with Slayer, Hunter, combination sailing where we go hunt leviathans. That sounds really, really cool. They've confirmed that will not be at release. For sure that will not be at release, assuming we do get it at all. And then they mentioned things like a mini raid that will not be coming at release. A lot of the more interesting sounding things are coming later on. We're getting these cargo missions with Baby's First Slayer task, Woodcutting 2, Janky Sepulchre. This is what is in the alpha currently. And for an alpha, honestly, I'm very impressed. I was not expecting anything to this level. I think the core mechanics of sailing on the boat feel okay, and I'm surprised it's as fleshed out as it is, all things considered. I just think it has a long ways to go. I was actually suggesting on stream, a method I would really enjoy and would love to see them add is these procedural, voyages, where basically, you and potentially a group of friends, it doesn't have to be, maybe it could just be soloed, but you would go with some friends. You would go to the tier of voyage you have access to, and it would sail you off into the distance beyond the map, and then it would procedurally generate a chunk of map for you. So there would be, islands on there with different, resources, different activities, different monsters. And then the training method would be exploring these different islands and then completing some big bad, main objective. Maybe there's a big boss in the center dungeon of the big volcano island, or, something along those lines. You're encouraged to explore all these different islands, and it's always fresh and unique because it's procedurally generated. The thing I did the most in the in the alpha, more so than training the skill, was just randomly sailing around and looking at the different islands. I was pulling out detach cam and looking at the different islands, and just trying to see what was new. To me, that's like the most engaging thing with scaling, is the like adventuring, the exploration, the going out and like finding the new stuff. So I feel like leaning into that would be a really good idea. I actually watched Jimmy's most recent video on sailing, and Jimmy and I we are so different as players go. We do not align much of the time. But Jimmy actually had literally the exact same take I had, and pretty much the exact same experience I had with the alpha. He was pulling out the detach cam, and he was like getting all excited about finding new trees and a new island. And his suggestion, his issue was that the exploration can only be done once. You can only go to a new island one time. You can only enter a dungeon you find on an island one time for the first time, right? You'll never have that sense of discovering something again after you've done it the first time. His suggestion was the same, the procedural voyage idea, which was crazy. I was like, wow, we just both came to that. Which I totally agree. I think that would be a really fun method, really engaging, really interesting, and I'd love to see them add something like that. And then I saw this Reddit post pop up, and I wanted to take a look at it. People hold sailing to minigame standards and then accused it of being a minigame. So I just got done reading through some of the comments on the thread about Jimmy's video and felt quite frustrated with the zeitgeist in the subreddit currently. Too long to read. People want sailing to be many, many times more complex and engaging than any other pre-existing skill, but also don't want it to be a minigame skill. Okay, so my too long didn't read from this. I think it'd be worth looking at this post. We'll have it in the description below if you want to look at it. This is a person who really enjoys skilling in the base game. Like really enjoys all the basic skills like woodcutting, runecrafting, thieving, agility, herb, like all of these, like just really enjoys skilling and wants more of it. They'd be down for a crafting 2. Like if a crafting 2 got added, they would like it. They would be down for that. I was looking through the comments in this thread, and there's a lot of this like, who is Jimmy? What is he talking about? He doesn't even play the game. I love Jimmy. I had the same conclusion you did after watching his video. And if you've watched any of his videos, it's pretty obvious he's into the more social aspects of the game and generally avoids skilling. It's unfortunate that Jimmy is trapped as an OSRS content creator while generally disliking OSRS. A lot of people like attacking his character as well for having this opinion. Based on what I'm gathering from this thread, there's a bunch of people that love the alpha. Exactly what is proposed will be plenty good for them. They are totally satisfied with more of the same skilling they already do. Like more of the similar stuff. They just want more skilling. As someone who is not in that group of players who really, really enjoys skilling, I have a max cape and I've done a ton of skilling on my alt. Like I've done more skilling than probably 95% of the people on Reddit. Okay, I've done a lot of skilling. Obviously that's not my main deal. I do PVM more than anything. But I've done a lot of skilling. I've done a wide variety of methods, AFK to super high intensity. I've done a lot of everything. As someone who does not inherently enjoy clicking tree, banking logs, the takes I keep seeing from this group of players that wants just more of the same, they don't want sailing to not feel old school. They want it to feel old school. And before I move on, I want to break that down. That is meaningless. That is utterly meaningless. And I kind of hate when people say that because it's not constructive and it doesn't help anybody. When something doesn't feel old school, my understanding from every time I've seen it is the animations don't look good. The gameplay looks janky. It looks private server-y. That's typically what people are thinking when they say something doesn't feel old school. It could mean anything. It basically just means I don't like this piece of content when you say something doesn't feel old school. Well, the other thing this group of players always say is they don't want it to feel like a mini game. And I feel like that's also not super constructive because what the heck does that mean? But I think they're at least coming from something. So I wanted to break down what the heck that means. What does something being mini-gamey mean? I saw this comment. It didn't have upvotes, but I thought it was funny. It summed it up well. People just want sailing to feel exactly like an old school skill, except not boring and repetitive. And it shouldn't be like a minigame either. And it shouldn't be like dungeoneering. Just make it like one of the skills that everyone universally likes and no one complains about. So this is the big thing with sailing. Like you can't just please everybody. There's different crowds of people that want different things. Like you just cannot... You can't please everybody, right? But I wanted to break down what mini-gaminess means to people and what would be bad about that and what would be good about it. I am an old RS3 player. I came from RS3 to old school in 2017. I played RS3 a long time. One of the big skills in that game is dungeoneering. And one of the things people complain about with that skill is that it also felt mini-gamey. So I felt like it was appropriate to bring it up. I actually like dungeoneering a lot, but I think it has a lot of issues. Dungeoneering, if you don't know, it's a corner of the wilderness that is non-wilderness called Demonheim. You go there, there's a big dungeon there, and you just go deeper. And as you get higher, as you complete these floors of random random dungeons, you get XP drops, you get level ups, and you access new floors of the dungeon. And the dungeon goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper until you're level 120 and you can make it all the way to the very bottom floors. The whole thing takes place in that location. It rewards these tokens, which can be used to buy rewards there. Feels mini-gamey. And I wanted to break down exactly what that means, okay? What does mini-gamey mean? These are the things I have listed. I have that mini-games are done primarily in one location. So dungeoneering is done at that one location. Goater, you just go there and you do it. Volcanic Mine, you go into the volcano, you do a volcanic mine game, you leave. So all of them are done typically in one location. Training methods are done over a wide area, usually with different level brackets, that kind of thing. It's not so much done in one location. Reward currency is another really common thing in minigames. Goater has the reward points. Motherlode Mine has gold nuggets to buy rewards. Temperos even has like reward pulls. Minigames also typically have some kind of UI interface that's unique to the like encounter, like something that you'd only see there. Something like Mixology is a good example where you have all the like potion indicators and all this stuff going on. Like a UI overlay is really common with a minigame. Completable unlocks, so things that you can purchase, obtain from there, like skilling outfits or things like that, that you can get there and like finish the mini game effectively, like unlock wise. Minigames also feel separate from the game world a lot of times. It's like go in, do a game at this place, and then leave. You go into Volcanic Mine and it feels like you're not in RuneScape anymore, you're in Volcanic Mine. You go to Goater, you go into a Goater game, and you exit a Goater game. It's like separate from the game entirely. And there's also typically a timer on completion. There's a set amount of time before the encounter fails, or there's a set amount of time before you beat the encounter. There's usually a winning, a losing, like that kind of thing with minigames. So these things are all the like, I think the things people think of when they feel like something feels like a minigame. So I think avoiding these is a good way of avoiding minigaminess. I wanted to jump ship for a second, but good pun, Gnomonkey. Why, thank you. And talk about a skill that RS3 added that is very similar to the other skills. Because this crowd, they just want more skilling. They want more of the same stuff. I wanted to show a skill in RuneScape 3 that is more of the same stuff. Divination is a gathering skill where you gather energy. Energy is used in the invention skill, so it's kind of like invention is smithing for divination, okay? Effectively, divination is fishing too, okay? You go up to these rifts, and there's rifts all around the game with little wisps going around, and you go up to them, you poke them, and you sit there and you harvest them, AFK, and your character goes like this, okay? And that's what you do. And I'm gonna show the like level guide table for divination. You start off west of Lumbridge Crater, 5k XP an hour. 10 to 20, next to Falador Lodestone, 10k XP an hour. 20 to 30, Varrock Lodestone, 12k XP an hour. 30 to 40, Sears Village, 19k XP an hour. 40 to 50, Fremnic Slayer Dungeon, 23k XP an hour. If this doesn't sound like RS3 skilling to you, that's because it's not like any other skill. It's really, really slow. It feels like an old school skill. It feels like fishing. Like it's just straight up, it's just like go to a place and just slowly get XP. And this is what I want sailing not to be. At all costs, I would like it not to be. Go up, do a thing, and then get a better thing for slightly better XP after. No engagement, nothing interesting going on. Just go up into AFK things. I don't mind if methods like this exist. Okay, I do AFK things all the time. Constantly, I'm AFKing things. I just don't want it to be the thing. We don't need fishing 2. There's no reason to add fishing 2. If you're going to add fishing 2, why not just add something more interesting, something more engaging, right? There's no reason to add more of the same stuff because there's plenty of it. It takes thousands of hours to get a max cape. There's no need for a fishing 2 in the game. So I do think there is a lot of merit to adding some engaging ways to train the skill. And I don't think it's necessarily bad to have the shipwreck salvaging, the like slow AFK methods that aren't as good, but you know, if you don't want to like actively train something, you can go do them. I don't think it's bad to have methods like that for sailing at all. There's a lot of times I would probably want to be doing those methods, but I don't want that to be the only or like primary way that you train the skill. I would like some more interesting and engaging methods. And that's where the procedural voyage idea comes in, where you have something you could potentially do with your friends, something that is going to be more repeatable, more interesting as you gain levels, and just more engaging. A big thing with this that people break down is they say, oh, that just sounds like dungeoneering. And I think dungeoneering had a lot of merit to it. Dungeoneering is go to a location, go into this cave, and then it separates you from the game world, okay? Where you're stripped of all your items, and you have to go make all your stuff from scratch using your own skills. And I think that adds to it feeling like a minigame, and I don't think this procedural voyage idea has to be like that. I don't think it has to be like that at all. Another problem Dungeoneering fell into is that it's literally all done in that same location, right? So I'm going to show, there's different floors of Dungeoneering, but this is what it looks like every time, okay? It's always the same. This is the initial starting room of Dungeoneering, okay? Once you get to the better tier of floors, these are the abandoned floors, it looks like that. Once you get to the furnished floors, even higher level, you can almost tell it changed colors. You then unlock the occult floors. Ooh, purple. Ooh. And then you unlock the warped floors. But you can see nothing like majors changing with a theme here. There's no jungle dungeons. There's no fiery volcano dungeons. There's no... Like, they have a general theme of like, ooh, they get spookier as you go deeper, which is kind of cool. But like, really, it's just like a color palette swap and nothing too major with like the theme changing, which is, I think, a big thing that adds to Dungeoneering's like feeling kind of tedious. There's also the fact that you're going through each of these floors repeatedly, and you're restarting from the beginning a lot for Dungeoneering. So you're going back through each of these sets of floors over and over and over and over and over, and they don't feel very different from each other. So it makes it feel kind of repetitive and kind of boring. Anytime we're talking about sailing, I'm thinking of Wind Waker, where Wind Waker, it's not procedural in Wind Waker. Wind Waker's a Zelda game that has like sailing as its main premise, where you're sailing around to different islands. Almost all of the Wind Waker islands have something unique about them, something interesting about them. I'll show you like a set of like examples. Like this island is a very basic one, but it has, you know, a steel guarded fortress. It has cannons on the outside that shoot at you when you pull up, and it has this exit where boats pull up out of. You have to kill all the cannons, kill the boats to get inside and loot a treasure chest. This is a giant tree. It's a giant hollow that you go inside. This is a giant volcano that you have to cool off to enter. And this is like an ice breathing dragon that you have to heat to get inside of as well and find treasure. So we have all these like these cool, varied, like interesting themes. Like nothing is feeling like samey here. Like all of these feel unique, interesting, and they all have their own like thing going on. And there's loads more interesting islands in Wind Waker. But I wanted to show that like sailing doesn't have to fall into the pitfall of, you know, brick, 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 brick. It can be, you can make really interesting islands. And even if it's procedural, at least you could have like the main island for each voyage feel a little bit different. You could have like 10 to 20 of these like different varieties of like big main islands as part of the voyages, which I think would help it stay away from being like samey and mini-gamey. I think that would help a lot if they were going to go this direction. I have a like basic picture of a Wind Waker island here, okay? This was my idea. Less interesting being on the ship than going to cool places, right? But I would like if the progression of sailing involves you using the ship to your advantage, okay? So idea I had is, let's say when you are about to embark on a voyage, it gives you a list of different resources you can find. Okay, mining ores, trees, hunter creatures, a bunch of different things that you could go find. And then you'll have different equipment slots on the ship. They've already said we can like outfit the ship entirely. So maybe you'd have different equipment slots on the ship to access those resources. Let's say you decide to lug out the big drill, okay? Because you see the voyage has ores on it that you care about, okay? So you get to the big island. Oh, the big island, you sail up to it. And then there's these rocks on the outside of the island. You go, oh, sick. Well, while I'm busy exploring the island, I'm going to drop the auto drill off my ship. And I know that's like, we're playing a medieval game. I get it. I would like it if the ship is just doing its own thing. I don't have to interact with the drill to make it work. I plop the drill on the rock, and my ship will mine away at these rocks for me as I'm walking around the island and exploring it, finding monsters, finding keys to treasure chests, you know, that kind of thing. Like exploring the island is its own thing, but you get a benefit because you came prepared and your ship was outfitted properly. Maybe there's this new type of tree here. You brought the fucking ship chainsaw. Nice. You load up the ship chainsaw against the tree and you go look around. You're doing your own thing. And when you come back to the ship, it's harvested 100 mahogany logs for you, or it's mined 50 mithril ore. And you get a chunk of that thing's XP. Maybe you get like 2k woodcutting XP, 3k mining XP, you know, that kind of thing. A little chunk of XP. Not good enough that you would want to primarily train through those methods, but enough that you're getting like a bonus for interacting with it and you would want to. And you could expand that further. Maybe with a big cannon, you can blow a hole in the side of the island and access a new dungeon or something like that, you know? It doesn't have to be just resources either. It could be the ship interacting with the island. I had the idea as well of like fully outfitting the ship. Maybe you can put extra storage like in a chest on the ship, so you could store extra potions for your voyage on the way there. I would really like also if this is not separate from the game world. I would like if you're bringing your own supplies in. Maybe you can get extra supplies, like if you throw a trawler net off the side of an island and you're collecting fish and you come back, you could cook them and get extra food that you might need. But I don't want it to be that you're not using any of your own supplies and you're getting everything from sailing. That really contributes to it feeling like a mini game, not feeling like it's part of the game world. It feels like a separate other thing. I'd much prefer if you're bringing your own stuff. But I'd like if you can haul back loot. Like, that's a big part of going on a pirate ship. You're getting loot. Like, you're collecting treasure, ores, logs, fish, like that kind of thing. Like, should all be stuff you're acquiring. This is the new Alpha's map as well. This is for sailing. So this adds a bunch of new, like, locations, new islands, that kind of thing. I'm picturing, like, these voyages being, you know, this corner of the map here is, like, black. You just put, like, a little, like, label here, and it's, like, the dark waters, and then a level requirement, and then you can go there. So it would be like, maybe this way would be the fiery waters, like there's volcanoes this way, there's a bunch of stuff going on, like a bunch of volcanic activity. Maybe it could be called like the volcanic fissure, okay? So like you'd have different level brackets for these different types of voyages, but they would have like a theme going on. I think could be really, really cool. It's entirely possible they're working on stuff like this, but from what I can tell, the main intention is to just add these main core skills with the cargo missions, the shipwreck salvaging, and the Barracuda trials. I just feel like these aren't justifying our investment into sailing. I see really commonly, like we were talking about the crowd of people that want more of the same. A lot of these people are like, anytime something is brought up about sailing, like being more interesting, they're like, yeah, but have you seen fire making? Like, you don't do anything in fire making, so like this would be totally different from fire making. Yes, it would be totally different from fire making. This is not fire making 2. It's not fishing 2. This is sailing. This is sailing. They've literally worked on this like over a year. A long, long time they've worked on this. If sailing was fire making 2, I think a lot of people would be upset. Sailing should be held to a higher standard, okay? This is the newest skill. Nothing has come out skilling-wise in many, 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 many years. This needs to be a departure from the typical, the norm. I think when people call things minigamey or, you know, that kind of thing, they really need to... I would implore that if this is your take watching the video, you dig a little deeper and you figure out what exactly you don't like about more engaging and interesting training methods, or what your issue is with them in general, because I really feel like sailing needs them. I feel like sailing really needs something more interesting than what we have currently. The Sea Hunter with Leviathans is going to be amazing, I'm sure, when that comes out. But at launch, it's looking like sailing is going to be very, very simple and very basic. Sailing has some cool systems going on, like the ship turning is kind of neat, like the way you get a speed boost when you hit the sails, speed boost when you hit whirlpools. Like there's a lot of cool stuff with the way the like boat handles, but the way we train the skill is just not, it's not it. I don't know. It's just not it. I think this is the critical point with sailing. We're getting sailing. Whether you want sailing or not, we're getting it. It is past the pole. It's coming. So the best thing that you can do if you don't want sailing is look for ways to improve it. If there's something you don't like about sailing, let people know. Talk about it. Like, talk with the devs about it. Talk with other people about it. And dig deeper into why you don't like it than just, like, new skill bad or I don't want mini-gamey sailing. You know? Like, we can put our thoughts out there in a little bit more useful way, I feel like. A more constructive way than just that. I did come off a little bit negatively against sailing with the way it broke down the different skilling methods. I really don't have an issue with any of these skilling methods on their own. I don't mind if these are all options. I just feel like we need a little bit more. I feel like sailing needs to be fleshed out further to be worthwhile and worth engaging with. I think it's also really important for sailing to be fleshed out when it comes out and not like 6 to 12 months after with sailing part 2. We saw this with Forestry where it just had issue after issue and they tried to clean it up and it just never really got there. This cannot come out like a wet fart. This cannot come out like that. There's going to be so much hype day one of sailing, people rushing to go interact with all the fun, like new training methods, all the new stuff. If it just whimpers out and people are like, man, this is not fun to train, this is not interesting, you'll have lost a huge chunk of the people that were on board with this. And even if you add the procedural voyages or even anything, if you add the mini raids, you add the Hunter Slayer, like people are going to be less interested in it at that point. I think it's really important to get sailing right when it comes out and not down the road. This is the time to be talking about it. This is the time to be giving feedback. If you have an issue with the training methods and you can break down why you don't like them, that is infinitely more helpful to the devs than, I don't want a new skill. New skills are bad. No one likes skilling. They've heard it all. They've heard it all. This is not helpful, okay? If you can break down what exactly you don't like about the current training methods in the alpha, then they can look towards improving them. They do have the big sailing Discord. I'll put that in the description as well. I'd highly suggest you hop in there. The devs are in there listening to feedback and stuff, so I'd highly recommend going in there. If there's something you don't like, pop in there, because a lot of the people in the sailing Discord are the people that like sailing. So they're missing the people that don't like sailing or don't like aspects of it. So if you can pop in there and be like, hey, I have this issue with this and this and this, maybe they can work towards fixing it. I think that would be a very helpful move if more people would do that and engage with the devs into looking for ways to improve sailing. I will say it's also equally unhelpful to turn down anybody's idea because it sounds like a mini game. Not everything's a mini game. And you know what? Sailing is not going to feel old school. When it comes out, it's going to feel totally new, totally foreign. It's not going to feel like old school RuneScape. It's not going to feel like the old school RuneScape you know and love. It's going to be different. And that's a little scary. And it's okay. It's okay. If sailing felt like old school, we probably wouldn't be very excited about it. So if you're super excited about sailing, we don't want it to feel like old school. We want it to feel different, right? Yes? Okay. Overall takeaway, I think what we have in the alpha right now is interesting. I think it needs to be more fleshed out. We need some more engaging and interesting scaling methods than just this. I think this will not alone work for sailing. I think we need something more. Give feedback to the devs, man. Give feedback to the devs. They need it. They need it. They've been working really hard on sailing. They clearly have a lot of passion behind this. So let them know what you're thinking. Let them know what you're thinking and what they could possibly improve on. I'm hoping as we move forward, Jagex comes up with some more stuff, that we get more alphas seeing, you know, more fleshed out sailing. I'd really like to see how the combat works, because that was just completely missing from the alpha. I'm sure we'll get a sailing combat alpha as well at some point. A lot of this would help. I do see the value in sailing. I do think a new skill could be really cool. I just don't want to see it make the same mistakes that a lot of RuneScape 3 skills made, where they're just not good. And that's it for the video. Leave a like if you liked it, and or subscribe. Bye!